Weiqi, the crown prince of Xiongnu Marquisate, my betrothed since childhood, suffered a crushing defeat. My father, the emperor, intended to punish him. With tears in his eyes, he climbed through my window in the dead of night to bid me a heartfelt farewell, vowing that we would be united in the next life. My heart softened, and I pleaded his case before my father, offering a peace marriage in exchange for his life. And on the very first day, my peace mission arrived at the Xiongnu court. A secret guard from the capital brought me news that Weiqi had married my younger sister, Princess Kangfu. I laughed, and in my laughter I slapped a cow passing by with such force that I killed it. That poor cow fell to the ground from my blow, spat out a mouthful of blood, and died quickly without a moment's suffering. The Xiongnu soldiers standing by the tent flew into a rage. One drew his sword and charged at me, shouting menacingly in Xiongnu words. I couldn't understand. "Can't you see I'm angry?" I struck him with another slap. The soldier's hat flew off, his eyes rolled back, and he spun around 3 times before collapsing next to the ox. I raised my hand to signal my guards to step back, then looked up at the stunned Xiongnu King of Beiting. "What did you just say?" I asked. The King of Beiting, who was well past 50, blinked twice. I just said. My maid beat him to the answer. "Your Highness, the King of Beiting just said that since you have come to the Xiongnu, you are now a Xiongnu woman. He demands that you strip naked, ride the ox, and circle the royal court once, and then he will admit you into his tent." I glanced at the King of Beiting before me, his beard so unkempt that his face was barely visible, frowned, and then pointed at the ox which had been resting for quite some time. "Ride this ox?" No. What I meant was, this ox has already been washed clean and paraded around the royal court. Your Highness can take it into your tent and eat it, the King of Beiting said with a forced smile. I informed the King of Beiting with a cold expression. "I haven't finished my business in the state of Jin yet. I must return." "You came here for a political marriage," the King of Beiting shouted. I raised my hand. I fucking changed my mind. The King of Beiting drew his great broadsword and glared at me in fury. "Then I'll see which is tougher, my blade or your palm." I slapped him across the face. That great sword, rumored to have accompanied the King of Beiting through 10 years of battle and severed countless heads, snapped in 2 under my blow. The King of Beiting's mouth gaped wide enough to fit an egg. A moment later, this unkempt, burly man, a head taller than me, slid 2 clear tears down his cheeks, crouched on the ground, and pounded the floor in agony. "My old blade. Oh, my old blade. Oh, ah. This Hun giant was crying so loudly, it made my ears ache. I reached out and pressed my palm against the edge of his bushy beard. "Cry anymore, and I'll slap you right here." The King of Beiting stopped crying instantly. He looked up at me, and to my surprise, I caught a glimpse of shyness hidden beneath his thick beard. He said awkwardly, "Oh then, please take your hand away first." Seeing that I had intimidated him, I withdrew my hand with satisfaction. The temple where I prayed for the nation's welfare was called the Shaolin Temple. During those 10 years at Shaolin, I practiced the iron sand palm technique every single day. The King of Beiting was named Xiongnu. He was the younger brother of the great Xiongnu of the Xiongnu, and the very man who had defeated Weiqi and specifically requested a princess for a political marriage. I still couldn't go back that day because Xiongnu said that according to their steppe customs, a woman who is married cannot return to her parents' home unless she has had a child. I raised my little palm once more. Xiongnu said that, strictly speaking, it wasn't impossible to follow the Great Jin's custom, where a woman returns to her parents' home 3 days after her wedding. But I'd have to get married first before the days could start counting. "Just pick any son of yours and go through the motions with me," I said. Xiongnu stared at me with wide eyes. "I have no sons." I quickly apologized. "I'm sorry, sir. I've brought up a painful subject. How did you lose your son?" Xiongnu's face turned very dark. I couldn't tell if he was just frowning or if his skin was naturally that dark. After I said that, Xiongnu walked away. Outside the tent, he pulled a Xiongnu man aside and started chattering away. "What are they saying?" I asked the maid beside me who understood Xiongnu. Zishan, while embroidering my new bodice, repeated their conversation. "Hey, Zabu, that little miss called me old man. Do I look that old? My king, you are the youngest and most handsome king on our steppe. Then, why did she call me old man? Oh, my king, this might just be a little game between the young princess and you." Me. This princess didn't understand, but this princess was deeply shocked. "Son?" After Jigme left that day, he never returned. The tents on the grasslands were nowhere near as comfortable as my palace, not even as good as the meditation halls at Shaolin Temple. I slept restlessly and got up early to go for a walk. The people of the northern court did not stop me, allowing me to wander the vast grasslands with a few guards and maids. As I wandered, I spotted the war horses kept by the northern court. It seemed to be the time of day when they let the horses out. A large herd of agile steeds galloped across the grasslands toward the rising sun, a magnificent sight. A man on a white horse let out a long, piercing cry, cracking his whip to drive the herd. Upon noticing me, he rode toward me against the light. I squinted as that tall, muscular figure approached. In the morning sun, he was just a dark silhouette. As he drew closer, he reached out to me from his saddle and asked simply, "Coming?" I finally got a clear look at the man's features. His chiseled face was incredibly resolute, completely lacking the delicate refinement of men from the Jin dynasty. His riding gear clung to his body, exuding pure masculinity. "Do you know who I am, old man?" I asked. The man leapt down from his horse and landed right in front of me, shouting angrily. "Zabu said I'm the youngest and most handsome king on the steppe, and you call me old man. Damn it. It's Gegmud. He's just shaved his beard. I'll admit that shaving his beard makes him look a few years younger, but that doesn't make him the youngest and most handsome, does it? Zabu lied to you, I said, looking at Gijmud with pity. Gijmud was shaking with rage. How old are you? I tried to bring Gijmud back to his senses by asking his age. Gijmud answered me with a scowl. 8. I couldn't help but slap Gijmud across the face. You're fucking 8 years old. Sigh. I'm such an idiot, really. I shouldn't have slapped Gijmud like that. The power of the iron sand palm is no joke. The shaman on the grasslands said that with that one slap, half of Gijmud's brain matter was scattered. I'm sorry, but putting the facts aside, you're partly to blame too. Why did you have to lie to me? I looked at Gegmud, his head wrapped in bandages, feeling guilty. Gegmud hugged a little lamb and glared at me. Well, Weiqi lied to you too. Why didn't you slap him? I glared back at him. How could I slap him if you wouldn't let me go back? Jigme grew impatient. If you won't marry me, how can I take you back? What if you go back and never come back? I fought this war just to snatch a wife for myself. I frowned. You're going to marry me? Jigme nodded. Have you no shame? An old bull going after a young calf. I shrank back a bit. Jigamud gritted his back teeth and spat out each word one by one. I'm only 24 this year. I'm the youngest and most handsome king on the grasslands. I gave Jigumud a couple of looks. But you really look 34. With that beard, you look 54. Jigme ignored me again. After a moment, Jigme spoke up. Are you really going to slap Weiqi when you get back? You bet. I cracked my knuckles. How many times? Jigme asked. Until he's dead. I clenched my back teeth just like Jigme had done earlier. The corner of Gijemud's mouth turned up. All right, then we'll have the wedding today. The day after tomorrow, I'll go back with you to slap him. I looked at him in confusion. Do you have a grudge against him? Gijemud nodded. What kind of grudge? Could it be that Weiqi had stabbed him in the back on the battlefield, playing dirty and still losing? What a useless piece of trash. Jigamedid snorted coldly. He bullied my wife. We have a blood feud. I froze for a moment, and it took me a while to realize who Jigamid was referring to as his wife. Jigamedid stared at me intently. Actually, aside from looking a bit older from the wind on the grasslands, he wasn't bad looking at all, and his physique was even better. There was just one thing I didn't understand. Is there something wrong with your head? I asked. After I beat his oxen, his soldiers, his swords, and his people, he's still grinning and asking me to be his wife. Jigumidi's face darkened again, and he pointed to his head, where half his brain matter had been shaken loose. What do you think? Oh, there really is something wrong with it, and I'm the one who did it. Ooh. On the second day after arriving at the northern court, I and Gegmud, his head wrapped in bandages, held our grand wedding ceremony on the grasslands. On our wedding night, Gegmud and I gazed at each other. Gegmud's head was still wrapped in bandages, which meant he couldn't wear his wedding cap properly tonight. He could only balance it on top of his head. I really couldn't stand the way that Cap looked on him, so I reached up and took it off his head. Jigmud grinned. Oh, you've already learned how to take off your man's hat so quickly? I warned him. Don't be so cheeky. Jigmud asked, does being cheeky mean a slap to the head? I thought for a moment and replied, a slap to the mouth. Jigmud licked his lips. You can't hit my mouth. I still need it. What use? I asked, wondering if he was going to keep being a smartass. Jigamud suddenly lunged at me, pinning me to the bed in an instant. I'm saving my mouth to force a kiss on you. It's terrifying. I was curious, how on earth did you become the king of Beiting? Jigamud replied smugly. I'm the Chanyu's only biological younger brother, so it really had nothing to do with strength. Then how did you defeat Weiqi? I pressed. Jigumud grew even more smug. I'm the champion of the Great Steppe wrestling tournament, so it really was all about brute strength, with not a shred of cunning involved. Is everything okay now? Jigumud asked. Then why? I paused. Why did you marry me? Jigamud propped himself up, his strong muscular arm resting right against my face. Because Jigamud's expression was more serious than I'd ever seen. Just as I thought he was about to say something truly moving, he answered me with a silly grin. If you marry someone else, what if you slap me one day for your husband's sake? Let's make 3 rules. Rule number 1, I won't slap you and you won't slap me. Because if I slap you, you might just feel a little pain, but if you slap me, I might die. Speechless, I rolled my eyes. What's rule number 2? Rule number 2, you have to teach our future daughter how to slap. I want my daughter to be just like you, able to slap her husband to death with a single blow. Gegmud said with the utmost seriousness. What about teaching our son? I asked, suddenly curious. Jigamud leaned in closer, his eyes sparkling as he looked at me. So my dear, are you willing to give me a son or a daughter? Jigamud's mouth was terrifying. He'd force a kiss on you, and it was absolutely terrifying. Oh, and Jigamud's waist was terrifying too. Leo. On the 3rd day after we arrived at the northern court, Jigme's head was secured with a wooden board and hung from the headboard. According to the shaman, my slap had shaken half his brain matter from side to side, and last night he'd shaken the other half up and down himself. If he moved that brain around anymore, it really wouldn't work anymore. I sat on Jigme's stomach, staring at him for quite a while before I couldn't help but compliment him. You're quite the talent. It wasn't that I particularly wanted to sit here. It was just that, given his condition, this was the only way I could see his face. Jigamud looked at me happily and said, just like that, just like that. In this position, you can't shake my head. Me, don't make me slap you again. I suppose my gaze was too fierce and Jigamud sensed my murderous intent. Jigamud said, According to our Xiongnu customs, if I die, you'll have to marry my brother. I said, if your brother is handsome, I'll send you on your way. Jigamood, but I only have one brother and my eldest is 58 this year. Me, then forget it. Jigamood laughed. You really do like me. He really has lost his mind from my beatings. On the third day after our wedding, Xiongnu indeed set off with me on the journey back to the Jin dynasty. On the day of our return, Xiongnu led the way with me and his personal guard, while the Xiongnu ministers from the northern court chased after us, shouting in a jumble of Xiongnu words I couldn't understand. Jigameed cracked his whip with great force, responding to the ministers behind him in a loud, incomprehensible tongue. I propped my head up against the carriage window, completely baffled. Zishan continued to embroider intently, translating for me with a cold expression. O youngest and most handsome king of the steppe, where are you taking the most beautiful and enchanting queen of our steppe? Go back, don't follow us. I'm taking the queen back to her parents' home to beat someone up. O youngest and most handsome king of the steppe, whom are you and the most beautiful and enchanting queen of the steppe going to beat up? The people who bullied the queen. Oh, well then, have a safe trip. By the way, from now on, don't call her the most beautiful and enchanting queen of the steppe. Then, what should we call her? You must call her the most beautiful and charming princess in the entire world. Farewell. To the youngest and most handsome king in the world, and to the most beautiful and charming princess in the entire world. Listening to Zishan's emotionless retelling, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Like master, like servant. That saying really rings true. Jigme's face suddenly loomed right in front of mine, grinning as he made a startling remark. Woman, you look truly beautiful when you smile. I was startled by Gegmood, but immediately, refusing to be outdone, I grabbed his chin. Man, you've successfully caught my attention. Gegmood blushed, and the next second, he vanished with a whoosh. You can actually burrow underground. I was utterly shocked. Gigmood, what other surprises do you have that I don't know about? Gigmood's bodyguards came running up, shouting frantically. Zishan translated coldly, there's a hole, there's a hole. The king fell into the hole, horse and all. All right, so he can't burrow underground. Stop the carriage, I screamed, ordering the carriage to halt before rushing down the slope. You damn fools! Gigman crawled out of the pit, covered in dust and dirt. His first glance was at me, and he corrected me earnestly. My name is Gigmund, not a few damn ones. I awkwardly scratched my nose. Haha, if you find my name hard to say, then just call me Your Majesty, like they do. Gigman thought for a moment, then gave me the title he was most satisfied with. I hesitated a bit. That doesn't seem quite right. What's wrong with that? Say it once so I can hear it. Gegmood brushed the dust off his clothes, reached out to pull me into his arms, and tried to get me to climb into the carriage with him. Seeing how pitiful he looked, I went along with his wish. Wangba. Jigamide. Don't think I don't know what Wangba means. I've studied your Central Plains dialect. Oh, I pondered what else I could call him. Before I could come up with anything, Jigamidi blurted out, if we're going to be Wangba, let's be Wangba together. Who wants to be a bastard with him? Just as I was about to retort, I turned to see him staring at me with a dead serious expression. Damn it, if we're both bastards, we'll live to be 100. I paused, nearly choking on my breath. What did you just call me? Jigamidi pointed to the pouch at my waist, embroidered with 2 characters. Damn it, isn't that your name? Even Zishan, who was usually so cold she seemed to have enrolled in the path of emptiness, laughed. Yanyan, I couldn't help but shout. I'm sorry, Yanyan, Jigumid apologized sincerely. My name isn't Yanyan, I said speechlessly. My name is T. The name recorded in the Great Jin's imperial registers is Sima Xuanyu, but back when my mother was still alive and before I was sent to the temple to pray for the nation, she would often pat my back and gently call me Yanyan. The banquet of youth, laughter and joy abounding. This was in my mother's memory, the beginning of her relationship with my father, the emperor. She cherished this beautiful beginning for the rest of her life, yet ultimately died in the midst of growing old together, only to end in my resentment. Wei Qi. He was the last talisman my mother left me before her death. She traded her life savings, and even the dowry meant for me, to secure a marriage contract between Wei Qi and me, hoping that when I came of age I would marry into the Wei clan, a family of noble lineage spanning generations, and live a life of wealth and honor. Yet the Wei clan, who had accepted my dowry 10 years ago, after luring me here under the pretense of a political marriage, they brazenly swallowed up my entire dowry. They may even have used the portion of my dowry I sent ahead as the betrothal gift for Sima Yaohua. I unconsciously clenched my fists, my nail polish stained nails digging deep into my flesh. At that moment, Jigamud took my hand, gently prying open my clenched fist, then looked deeply into my eyes and asked, Does Jindu make you unhappy? I didn't want to answer, but for some reason, I nodded anyway. I replied softly, After a moment of silence, Jigamud asked again, Why did you come here for the marriage alliance? For a moment, I didn't know how to answer him. I had it looked into. Everyone in the Jin dynasty says you're only enduring this marriage for Wei Qi's sake, Yigmu said casually. But I don't believe them. I paused, then asked him a question of my own. Then, why are you marrying me? Don't tell me it's because of that slap. Gigmu glanced at me, looking flustered. Well, how am I supposed to explain this to you? Stop beating around the bush, you big guy. I furrowed my brow. Jigamud glanced at Zishan. Zishan, who had been quietly embroidering with her head down, seemed to have eyes in the back of her head. She leaped straight out of the carriage. Thud. The sound was like a winter melon hitting the ground. You can tell me now, right? I looked at Gegmud. Gegmud leaned close to my ear and whispered, Yan Yan, actually, I kind of like it when you hit me. Just tone it down a little, otherwise, I'll really die. I didn't know how to respond to Gegmud, so I simply turned to look out the carriage window. The vast grassland swept past me, and the flat road allowed the carriage to move quickly. After watching for a while, I suddenly remembered something. My face went pale as I turned to look at Jigme and asked, has the carriage been going this fast the whole time? Jigme nodded. Yeah. My face grew even paler. Is that how Zishan jumped out? Jigme's face went ashen. Bah, Zishan didn't suffer any injuries from the fall. I'd almost forgotten that back when we were at the Shaolin temple together. I practiced the iron sand palm while she practiced the iron cloth robe. Not only was she unharmed, but she'd even embroidered a new pouch for me. The words embroidered on it read, Du Fu can move. I didn't quite understand. Who was Du Fu and was the fact that he could move something worth celebrating? I was too embarrassed to ask Zishan myself, so I nudged Gijmu Day and told him to ask instead. Gijmu Day scampered off to ask her, Miss Zishan, what does Du Fu can move mean? Zishan, who had just picked up a leg of lamb to gnaw on, twitched the corner of her mouth, shot Gijmu Day a glance, and replied with disdain, diligence makes up for lack of talent. Gigmud saw the disdain in Zishan's eyes, so he decisively snatched the leg of lamb from her hand and scampered back to me. As he handed me the leg of lamb, he relayed her answer. Zishan said that Du Fu is active means diligence makes up for lack of talent. Me, oh, so Du Fu is actually pretty active. Jigumud leaned in close and said with a cheeky grin, I'm even more active than he is. I was baffled. Why are you competing over this? Jigumud raised an eyebrow. Don't you believe me? I shrank back a little. I believe you. Jigamidi grabbed my hand. Words are useless. Let me prove it to you. No need to prove anything. I believe you. It took me 2 months to walk from the Jin Dynasty's capital to the Northern Court back then. But now, returning from the Northern Court to the Jin Dynasty's capital, it took me 3 months. Jigamide couldn't bring himself to take a single step after we entered Jin territory. When we passed through a county seat, he'd drag me out to wander the streets. When we passed through a mountain village, he'd drag me around the village. Even when walking along an official road flanked by trees and grass, he'd occasionally drag me off into the woods to play. Traveling is exhausting, but traveling with Jigamide is even more exhausting. The eldest princess and her newlywed prince consort were returning from their wedding tour, and from the moment Gigamide and I first entered the imperial city, the Ministry of Rites paid us the utmost attention. It's actually quite funny. Those officials from the Ministry of Rites kept chanting that protocol is paramount. Yet even before my mother had drawn her last breath, they had already begun preparing the ceremonial procession to install a new empress for my father. On the very second day after I left the imperial city for my marriage alliance, they were already arranging a grand wedding ceremony for Wei Qi, my betrothed with someone else. As the carriage approached the city gates, Gaijemud, acting all proper, helped me step down. The moment I looked up, I spotted 3 enemies who could barely be called acquaintances. Wei Qi, Sima Yaohua, and that official from the Ministry of Rites who had escorted me on my wedding journey. The one who had spent the entire trip assuring me of how miserable Wei Qi was in the capital. Having spent all these years in the temple, I had no idea this man was Wei Qi's so-called best friend. This servant, Wang Gan, Vice Minister of Rites, has been commanded by His Majesty to humbly welcome the King of Beiting and Princess Xuan back to the palace for a family visit. Wang Gan stepped forward and bowed to me, acting as if he didn't recognize me at all. Sima Yaohua, holding up her skirt, walked enthusiastically to my side, affectionately linking her arm through mine as she spoke to me. Your Imperial Highness, you're finally back. Oh, the Xiongnu lands are so bitterly cold. You must have suffered terribly. I was supposed to be the one sent to marry into the Xiongnu, but if you were supposed to go, it's not too late to switch places with me now. The King of Beiting won't mind. I looked at the malachite hairpin on Sima Yaohua's head and cut her off. Sima Yaohua's expression froze, and she gave a couple of awkward laughs. Before Sima Yaohua could speak, Jijamud lost his temper first, raising his booming voice to shout. Who said, I don't mind. I do mind. I don't want her. Jijamud impatiently yanked me back to his side. After shouting that, he lowered his head and looked deeply into my eyes. I only want you. That old rascal, putting on this whole show. I blushed. It was clear he hadn't shaved in the past 3 months and had grown a stubble, but somehow I found his appearance much more pleasing to the eye. Prince of Beiting, Princess Xuan, His Majesty is awaiting you both at a banquet in the palace. Please, Your Highness and Princess, do make your way there. Wang Gan stepped forward and said. I looked at Wang Gan, then glanced at Wei Qi and Sima Yaohua standing together, and asked him, is this the Wei Qi you spoke of, the one who pined for me like a madman after my marriage alliance, even falling ill because of me? Wang Gan smiled faintly and replied with shameless candor, Princess Xuan, you jest. General Wei has always held Princess Kangfu in his heart. On the journey to the marriage alliance, I merely went along with your imagination. Sima Yaohua's eyes quickly filled with tears. Your Royal Highness, I know you love Wei Lang, but Wei Lang and I are also deeply in love. You are now married, so you shouldn't be thinking of others. But if you truly cannot let go of Wei Lang, Yaohua will gladly step aside. Wei Qi hurriedly pulled Sima Yaohua into his arms, looking at her with pity, but when he raised his gaze to meet mine, his eyes were cold and ruthless. My affection for Yaohua is my true heart's desire. Though I am betrothed to Princess Xuan, I do not love her, nor do I wish to be bound to her for the rest of my life. I ask Princess Xuan to understand this, and I beg her not to blame Yaohua. Birds of a feather flock together. No wonder those three got together. They really are just as shameless as each other. Jigme's face had turned as black as charcoal. He leaned close to my ear. Can you really put up with this? I twirled my fingers and asked him. We're in the Jin dynasty. If I hit them, would we even be able to return to the grasslands? Why not? Jijimud pounded his chest with solemn conviction. The northern court, as 200,000 strong army is already lined up at the border. If they don't let us go back, I'll turn this place into grasslands too. I let out a sigh of relief. Then I'm put at ease. Princess Xuan. Wang Gan tried to plead again. I turned and delivered the slap. Jigme had been waiting for right across Wang Gan's face. Fantasies, my ass. Wang Gan spun gracefully in place 3 times, then spread his arms and fell flat on his back. He clearly hadn't expected me to be able to slap a grown man. Wei Qi froze for a moment, instinctively about to come to Wang Gan's defense. Sima Xuanyu, how dare you strike a court official? My next slap landed squarely on Wei Qi. Wei Lang, you really do deserve to be fed to the wolves. Wei Qi didn't spin. He raised his hand to block, only to be sent flying several meters away, crashing to the ground and lying motionless. Sima Yaohua froze in place, trembling uncontrollably. Sister, how could you do this? Brother-in-law, you must stop her. Sima Yaohua's use of the term brother-in-law seemed to please Jigme quite a bit, so he graciously replied to her. I can't do anything about it. She hit me too. I held out my hand towards Sima Yaohua and said coldly, give me back my mother's hairpin. Sima Yaohua raised her hand to adjust the hairpin in her hair, then, in a moment of madness, replied to me. Wei Lang gave this to me. I laughed in exasperation, snatching the hairpin with one hand and slapping Sima Yaohua with the other. Then go feed the wolves with your Wei Lang. Sima Yaohua flew over to Wei Qi's side and crashed right into him, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. That's got nothing to do with me. I only slapped him. One slap wouldn't make him cough up that much blood. He must have some underlying condition. After dealing with those 3, I clutched the Empress Dowager's hairpin and turned to call out to Jigmud, intending to head into the palace with him to settle the score with my old father. But I saw Gegmud looking at me with a smile on his face. You like me, Gegmud informed me proudly. I asked him, why do you say that? Jigamedid replied, you didn't hit me that hard because you couldn't bring yourself to do it. Me? Do you like me? Do you like me? Jigumide nuzzled my neck like a big puppy. Can't you tone it down a bit in public? I pushed Jigumide away, my face flushing. I like you. I like you. I like you the most. Gigman laughed even more heartily, scooped me up in his arms, scrambled onto the carriage in 2 swift bounds, and pressed me down onto the soft couch. I like you too. I've liked you for a very, very long time. Zishan leisurely finished sewing the last stitch, then leaped out of the carriage with a clean, decisive motion. Thud! It sounded just like a winter melon hitting the ground. Jiao? My old father, who had no affection for me, had indeed thrown a banquet in my honor. He disliked my mother, and he disliked me, but he still had to save face for Gijmu. The palace banquet was quite a spectacle, with clinking cups and a sea of lights and wine. Everyone wore smiles, greeting me warmly as if we were old friends. That simple-minded Gijmu didn't seem to mind. He downed cup after cup of wine, and before he knew it, he was a bit tipsy. Just as Gijmu was slumping drunkenly against my shoulder, Wei Qi wrapped in bandages, and Sima Yaohua arrived supported by palace attendants. Oh my, what has happened to you two? Father was startled by their appearance. Sima Yaohua burst into tears. The entire hall fell silent as everyone watched the emperor of Great Jin's most beloved princess weep, like a rain-soaked pear blossom, sobbing uncontrollably as she accused me of my crimes. Your humble son heard today that Her Imperial Highness the princess had returned, so I specially went with the prince consort to greet her. But, sniffle, sniffle. Not only did Her Imperial Highness fail to appreciate our kindness, she actually struck your humble son and the prince consort. Wei Qi too knelt before the emperor, gritting his teeth. This subject accuses Princess Xuan of being spoiled and capricious, of flouting the law, and of bullying others with her power. That was still too lenient. I looked at Wei Qi and Sima Yaohua, pondering just how much force I would need to send them packing in one fell swoop. Before I could finish my thoughts, Jaijamud, who had been leaning against my shoulder, suddenly staggered to his feet. I looked up at Jaijamud. Though his steps were unsteady, his expression was exceptionally grave. Jigme walked up to Wei Qi and Sima Yaohua. He was naturally tall and burly, standing before those 2 pampered individuals. He looked like a small mountain. Jigme said nothing. He simply raised his foot and kicked each of them, sending the 2 already wrapped in bandages crashing to the ground. Then he asked casually, "Who are you impeaching?" Wei Qi was stunned by the sudden kick and answered blankly, "Princess Xuan." Jigme delivered another kick to Wei Qi's stomach. "Who? Enough. Prince of Beiting, this is the territory of the Great Jin. Have you gone mad?" The emperor could no longer stand by and shouted angrily. "So what if I'm a little crazy?" Gegmud turned to face the emperor with a cold sneer. "I had a 200,000 strong army by the age of 24, so what if I go mad?" The emperor was well aware of the formidable presence Gegmud's 200,000 strong army now held along the border. Having already sent his daughter off in a political marriage, how could he dare to challenge Gegmud? A member of the imperial clan stood up. "How dare you? This is the Great Jin Imperial Palace, not your northern court." Gegmud kicked him aside. "I don't care where this is." A princess consort stood up. "Your Highness, by allowing the prince consort to act so recklessly at the night banquet, you are truly breaking His Majesty's heart. I cannot stand by and watch this." I held back my strength slightly and slapped her. If you can't stand it, then look away. Prince of the Northern Court. Did I give you permission to speak? Xiongnu kicked him before he could finish. Your Highness, the princess. I didn't let him speak, but I did let you, didn't I? After a moment of silence, the emperor forced a smile. I have only one thing to say if you hit them. You can't hit me, okay? Wasn't that just a matter of convenience? It's time to return the dowry. My mother left me, I said. The emperor feigned ignorance. What dowry? Didn't I let you take it all with you? I retorted. Do you want me to hit you now or later? The emperor flew into a rage. Xuan, is this how you speak to your father? I let out a cold laugh. What attitude should I have toward you? Gimd pulled me behind him and looked at the emperor on the dragon throne, a man who had indulged in pleasure for over 20 years with a smirk, threatening. Do you want me to send troops now, or wait until later? The emperor's jowls quivered. He felt humiliated by everything that was happening. But after years of indulging in pleasure and embezzling military funds, he had reduced the nation to a shell of its former self, all show and no substance. He was utterly powerless to resist. Xiongnu grew impatient. He kicked over a table of wine, tilted his head, and glared at the emperor. Damn it, I don't have time to waste on you. Pay it back. The emperor finally caved. I'll pay right away, every last penny. I'll send men to fetch it immediately. Father, Sima Yawa called out to the emperor in a pleading tone. The emperor glanced at her and said only one thing. I don't want to be beaten, whether it was being slapped by me or facing the threat of the Xiongnu's 200,000 strong army at the northern border. He wanted neither. From start to finish, he was a failure as a husband, a failure as a father, and a failure as an emperor. That night, I took Xiongnu to rest in the palace where I had lived with my mother during my childhood. It's quite ironic, really. When the emperor was still a crown prince, he went out of his way to please my mother and showered her with affection. But once he finally ascended the throne, thanks to my maternal family's influence, he began to neglect my mother. After my mother passed away from illness, he sought to publicize his deep affection by refusing to name a new empress. I told Xiongnu all of this that night. This man, whose thought processes I usually couldn't fathom, chose to pull me into his arms after I finished speaking. He said, I'm not like your father. I fell silent, at a loss for words. You hit people with your hands. I kick them with my feet. Together, we use both hands and feet. We're a perfect match, Xiongnu continued. I looked at Xiongnu and asked the question I'd already asked him several times. Why on earth did you marry me? Xiongnu's strong muscular arms held me tightly against him. That's even harder to explain. I guess it's because different trades are like different mountains. I don't know how to put this into words, but my heart tells me I want to be with you for the rest of my life. I smiled softly. Do you remember our 3 rules? You've mentioned 2 of them, but you haven't said the last one yet. Then, I'll add the last one now. Xiongnu said, we're going to stay together forever. If you die, I won't live. And if I die, you're not allowed to marry my brother. Then who would I marry? I teased him on purpose. Xiongnu looked at me with a troubled expression, muttering to himself and mulling it over for a while, then said to me in a consultative tone, how about you die first? Me? I shouldn't have teased him. If you die, I won't live either. I wrapped my arms around Sigmund's waist and buried my head in his chest. Thank you, my husband. Sigmund paused for a moment, then said, my name is Sigmund. I know. Sure? The next day, Sigmund's personal guard stormed into the Wei residence and began hauling everything out. They didn't care if it belonged to my mother or not. They hauled everything away. That's mine. That's my stuff. Not yours. Sima Yaohua cried out, chasing after a trunk. The entire Wei mansion was in chaos, everyone scrambling to salvage whatever property they could. But those burly bodyguards weren't just eating their pay for nothing. With a casual shove of their shoulders, they knocked people to the ground. We've shared many years of affection. Must you really drive me to such extremes? Wei Qi rushed up to me, glanced at Xiongnu, then whispered in my ear. I know you resent me for loving Yaohua, but now you're in charge of the Jin kingdom. So just tell this Xiongnu soldier to stop. I'll have men intercept you on your way back to the Xiongnu, bring you back here and make you my co-wife, equal to Yaohua. I promise you. I'll let you bear a child before Yaohua to secure your position. Wei Qi's words actually made me laugh, and I raised my hand to slap him. Why haven't you gone to feed the wolves yet? Although Xiongnu hadn't heard what Wei Qi had just said, he immediately kicked Wei Qi without hesitation the moment he saw me strike out. You've made my wife angry again. Sima Yaohua was wailing beside us, but she didn't dare come over to see how Wei Qi was doing. Let's go home. Xiongnu held out his hand to me. I placed my hand in his. Okay. This was the 3rd time I'd walked this path. The first time was on the way here. Now, for me, it was the way home. Sitting in the carriage, I lifted the curtain to watch Xiongnu riding alongside the cart. He still looked a bit older than his years, but that was exactly how I liked him. You like me? Xiongnu suddenly turned his head and said to me with absolute certainty, you've been sneaking glances at me from inside the carriage. You must like me. I smiled softly and nodded in acknowledgement. Yeah, I do like you. Xiongnu's face suddenly flushed. Well, that's good. I smiled without speaking, continuing to lean against the window and watch Xiongnu. Xiongnu rode on, feigning composure, but after a while he couldn't resist leaning down again and pressing a light kiss to my lips. I like you too. I'd been calling him Xiongnu for a year and still found the name a bit of a mouthful, so every now and then, I'd call him husband. But every time I called Xiongnu husband, he'd give me a strange look. I really can't take it anymore. Xiongnu gritted his teeth as he climbed off me and shouted. I looked at him blankly. Xiongnu. My name is Xiongnu. Xiongnu angrily bit me. Stop calling me husband. You married me, not my brother. I was dumbfounded for a moment. Your brother. Jigmeet snorted coldly. That's the great Khan Fujun you've been pining for. Suddenly finding myself with a great Khan to pine for, I could only manage to say in a hoarse voice, your brother sure knows how to pick names. Jigmeet pressed down on me again. Don't you dare praise him. Don't praise him. Praise me. My name is the one that's truly great. I really wasn't praising his brother. But from now on, I'll have to give Jigmeet some serious praise. When I woke up the next day, Jigmeet was gone, and no one in the entire northern court had any idea where he'd run off to. Just as I was getting so anxious, I was about to go out and look for him myself. Jigmeet returned, brought back on horseback by a burly man who was holding him up. This man was even bigger than Jigmeet, and his fur-clad attire made him look even more imposing. The giant reined his horse to a halt in front of me, looking down at me from above, then tossed Jigmeet into my arms and rattled off a long string of words at me. What did he say? I asked, looking at Jigmeet in confusion. Jigmeet hugged me, burying his head in my chest without saying a word. It didn't matter if he didn't speak. Zishan would take care of it. Sister-in-law, could you please slap him a couple of times? Riding all the way to the royal court first thing in the morning, shouting that he wants to swap names with me. Is a name something you can just swap? Just shouting and making a scene like this. I don't want to see him again. If he acts this chaotic again in the future, you slap him until he's nearly dead. But you'd better have a son to inherit the throne first. Otherwise, after you slap him to death, you'll have to remarry me. For the entire first part of that speech, Jigmeet had been buried in my arms, playing dead. It wasn't until the very last sentence that Jigmeet couldn't help but hoist me onto his shoulders and dash back into the tent, shouting a parting shot at that Grand Khan named Fugan from a distance. Zishan dutifully translated that line for me as well. Don't even think about it. She's my wife, or I'll kick you. It took a lot of effort to explain the difference between husband and Fujun to Jigmeet, though he still wasn't quite used to it. But soon, the arrival of our child gave Jigmeet a new title. My firstborn was a girl, and when she first came out of my body, she was really tiny. Jigmeet's 2 hands could already hold the entire child. I gave her the most beautiful name in the whole world. Jigmeet carefully placed the baby beside me. What's her name? I asked. Jigmeet was as proud as ever. I took one character from your name and added my heartfelt wish, so our daughter is named Emma. All I could say was, just wait until she grows up. She'll probably slap you in the face. Jigmeet grinned and leaned in to kiss me. I love you.